even though Florida and California are quite the opposite in many different ways, we're actually starting to come together on one thing, and that is the amount of people living in their cars. Yeah, that's right, because you have more and more people here in Florida that are now starting to turn to living in their car because they can't afford the rent, which we're going to talk more about in just a minute, because there's a lot of people that can't afford the rent throughout the country as well. But first, let's focus on Florida because I'm here. One thing that people are doing to escape the high cost of living, which has been happening for a long time but is becoming a growing concern and trend, is people living in their cars because they can't afford rent, guys. And especially home ownership is becoming completely out of reach for the people that are doing this, because here in Florida, we have an insurance crisis, okay? And we are now the #1 most expensive state in the entire country for homeowners insurance. For the longest time, Oklahoma took the cake, but recently we just overtook Oklahoma because of how much it is jumping here. It is just totally insane. For a $300,000 house right now, the average that people are paying for insurance premiums per year is almost $4,500 a year. So that works out to almost $400 a month. You know, it's like $370 a month roughly that people are paying, whereas the nationwide average is at $2,600 a year. And I know there's some people that pay less than that. You guys write me and tell me in the comments, you know, I only pay $1,300 a year or $1,500 a year. Like, if that's you, consider yourself lucky, because that is not the norm. Even the nationwide average is at $2,600 a year now. So if you're anywhere below that, you're doing good. Here we have a house for rent for about $9,500 a month, and if you think that's high, they started off asking $12,000 a month back in December of 2023. This house has just been sitting here empty, waiting for a tenant for the past 4.5 months or so, and no takers. This is just absolute mental madness in the highest magnitude, if you ask me. But it gets worse for these people because they still have a homestead property exemption, keeping their property tax bill at around $13,000 a year. Once they turn this into a rental, that tax bill is probably going to double. And now they're going to have to pay a lot more to not only have property tax payments on this house, but also the insurance payments are also going to skyrocket when they become a landlord. And it's a calculation that most people don't take into consideration and find out the hard way when it's too late. So of course the news talks to people who are doing this and living in their cars and asks them their reasoning for it. And everybody has the same reason, guys. It's because they can't afford to pay for a house or even pay for regular rent. So that's all they got left. They talked to one woman who's living in her minivan over in Fort Myers, Florida, and she goes, you know, my insurance on my vehicle is my homeowner's insurance. And, you know, she has a very good attitude about this. She's like, you know, it could be worse. Yeah, I guess it could be. I guess you wouldn't even have the minivan, and you wouldn't even have money to pay for the car and the insurance on the car and all this. But still, it's a pretty bad situation. That's a big gas tank. But you know the worst part about this story is that car insurance is skyrocketing too, all across the country, but particularly here in Florida. And you know, there could come a day when somebody like this woman can't even afford to pay for the insurance on the car anymore. Then they're really in trouble. You know, if they get in an accident or something happens, they might get the car impounded, and that's it. Now you're truly homeless. And I'm willing to bet that if people like this end up in a situation where they can't pay the car insurance, they're just going to forego it, because at least they're not going to take the car away from you, versus if you live in a house that's mortgaged and you're not paying the insurance, then chances are you're going to end up in a foreclosure at some point, because once the mortgage company puts a forced place policy in place and you can't afford that, you'll probably stop paying the mortgage, and that'll be the end of that for you. But for anybody looking for good news, this is not your video, let me tell you, because it gets worse from here. Not only you have people being forced to live in cars, but there was a recent survey done from Redfin, and half of the entire country right now is struggling to keep a roof over their heads because of how much it costs, guys. The rent is too damn high. The mortgages are astronomical. Don't even ask about those. Some homeowners recently reported to Redfin that they are selling their belongings, picking up overtime shifts, and canceling vacations, working a second job, and even skipping the meals to keep up with their mortgage or rent payments right now. When do people just give up? You know, I think that's what these people who are living in the cars are doing. They're saying, you know what, instead of struggle with all of this, I might as well just live in my car and pocket a lot of the money that I make. It might not be ideal living in the car, but at least I have money left over each month and I'm not a complete slave to my house. And to make matters worse, because the cost of housing is so high, some families can no longer afford other essentials, including food and medical care, and are being forced to make some major sacrifices and, you know, some really difficult choices. And this is a brand new survey that Redfin just did in February of 2024. And a different survey that was done in 2023 from Clever Real Estate found out that 62% of homeowners sometimes struggled to make their mortgage payment on time. That is horrific, guys. Here we have your typical hot potato Miami property. It's a rental listed at $15,000 a month. This person just bought this house for $2.325 million in July of 2023, but get this, the last time it rented was 2021 for only $66.50 a month. So this guy thinks he's going to turn this into the miracle rental, where all of a sudden they're going to be getting double what they were getting 2 years ago. Good luck with that, guys. Even in 2020, it was renting for $6,200. Before that, $5,000 a month. Like, this property has rented nowhere near what this current owner is asking. And look at that. Their property tax bill was $33,000 in 2023. That's going to jump up even more now that they paid this crazy price for this house. So these guys are not going to be turning the profit that they thought they were going to. They were sold a lie, thinking they're going to rent this house for 15 grand a month, when in reality they'll be lucky, and I mean lucky, to get $7,000 a month. Right now, the median mortgage payment across the country is almost $2,200 as of February, and just a year ago it was $2,061. So it's gone up about $250 in the span of 1 year, and median rents are at $1,981 as of February, which is up from $1,937 a year ago. But despite all of this, guys, somehow people are keeping it together, and you're not seeing a big wave of defaults or foreclosures just yet, but that could change in the future. Right now, the delinquency rate of people who are 90 days past due on mortgages is at 3.88%, and between 1979 and 2023, the delinquency rate averaged 5.25%. So still below the historical average, which is kind of a miracle given all these things that we're hearing about the economy. And that's one reason I like to talk about this stuff, because all we hear about is how great things are. So I like to cover how things are not so great for a lot of people, because it pushes back against this narrative that things are just humming along and life is hunky-dory right now for everybody, because that's not true. You can say what you will about me, you can say I'm a gloom and doomer, I don't care. You know why? Because I'm reporting the truth on what's really happening with people out there. And I'm pretty sure that most people who watch my channel know that. But one thing that is being uncovered in this delinquency data is people who are newly signed into a mortgage are falling into delinquency faster right now. They think it's because of the resumption of student loan payments and the robust personal spending and rising balances on credit cards and other forms of consumer debt, paired with a decline in the savings rate. So the most recent home buyers, guys, there's like a clear and hard cutoff date. I think if you bought before 2022, you're probably in the clear for the most part. You probably got an okay price, if not a good price, and definitely a good interest rate. All right, but if you're somebody that bought, you know, by the spring home selling season of 2022 and later, you're totally effed right now, because you have a high interest rate, you probably overpaid for your property by a pretty wide margin, and depending on where you live, you could be even underwater on your mortgage as we speak, because there's a good chance that your property is worth less than what you paid for it then. So it's not really a huge surprise that people who recently purchased over the past couple of years are the ones who are struggling the most right now with paying their mortgage on time and having delinquencies. But if you think you're going to turn to crime, and that's going to be the answer, like in California, not so fast, not here in Florida anyways. In fact, Governor DeSantis just signed a bill into law that tackles retail theft here in Florida. So apparently they're getting ahead of the trend on all this stuff, guys. Like, they're starting to realize in Florida that some of the things that people are getting away with across the country, they're worried about this coming here, and they're already, chopping it off at the knees before it becomes a problem. Most recently has been the squatter law that was passed to, make it easy to get somebody out of your house. All you gotta do is call the sheriff and they'll take them out. It's that simple now. No more of this red tape BS, trying to get people out that aren't supposed to be there. That's over. The homeless sleeping in the streets, that's gonna be over too. You're gonna be moved to a new location where everybody's gonna be concentrated, or you're gonna be moved to a shelter somewhere, but you're not gonna be sleeping on the sidewalk somewhere. And now they're getting ahead of retail theft, okay? Because what this new law does is it reduces the minimum threshold amount for an offense of grand theft of the third degree, creating an offense of grand theft of the third degree. And it's not even that retail theft is a major problem here in Florida. In fact, according to our governor, retail theft has been down over the past 4 years here in Florida, but they're doing this anyways to discourage people even further from going out there and committing crimes and stealing. A quote from the governor says that we're going to make sure our retailers are able to sell products that consumers are able to benefit and that people are held accountable when they break the law, guys. So I don't know why anybody wouldn't be happy with this, because this is just like a common sense move right now to make sure you're actually arresting criminals that are breaking the law and stealing. So far, I think these are all some pretty common sense measures that they're taking here to make sure that crime and homelessness and the squatting problem are completely minimized or eliminated in the case of the squatters. Now, assuming you actually can afford a place to live right now, let's talk some housing market predictions. Now, to be 100% clear, these are not my predictions. These are predictions from some of the experts, so I'm kind of curious to see what they have to say about this. And I haven't even really read this ahead of time. I'm kind of like reading it now as a surprise to see what my reaction is going to be as I'm filming this. Now, the first prediction is, which isn't really a prediction, it's a fact that's happening right now, because spring is already well underway, right? It's almost mid-April right now. But the first prediction is that this year's home buying season is going to get a late start. They say May is the month in which sellers typically get the most bang for their buck. Now it's been shifting closer to later in the season to June as of the last couple years. And they say that the interest rate environment could further slow matters down this spring because high rates have been a major dampener to the market. But they say don't worry, because we still are confident that the Fed is going to cut the federal funds rate in mid-June and could prompt an early summer surge in home listings for sellers who have been discouraged from moving by high rates. Now I'm just doing everything I can right now to make sure I don't fall on the ground laughing, but even if the Fed does a rate cut in June, guys, it's going to be a quarter point. It's going to do nothing for mortgages. It's going to do absolutely zero for housing affordability. Nobody's going to be able to go out there and buy a house and all of a sudden encouraged to get their house on the market and become a home buyer from a quarter point rate cut. It's not going to happen. This is not a prediction, this is wishful thinking. One prediction I think they're actually accurate on here is because the NAR settlement goes into full effect in the middle of July, that this can affect some of the timing and decisions that home buyers and sellers make moving forward because of the huge shakeup in the real estate industry. And this I do believe to be the case because I think a lot of people are just not gonna know what to do or how to handle this. And that's also one of my arguments for thinking that a lot of people are just going to continue paying the buyer's agent as usual because of all the uncertainty. Like, I just want to move through the transaction. I don't care about the new rules. Let's just do it like they did it before. I think that's going to be the logic of most home sellers, just for simplicity's sake, just to get the property sold. But they say another problem to look out for this year is the rising cost of homeowners insurance. They also believe this is going to impact housing affordability in a very big way. Now, I'm happy to be hearing this, guys, because these are the experts saying this, not me, and they're predicting what I've been saying for the past year and a half already, and they're finally starting to realize that this is happening. This is not fake news, that people's insurance rates are exploding, as well as property taxes with these high purchase prices. And the simple fact is, when people go to qualify for these mortgages, they're not qualified based on what the future property tax bill is going to be or what the future insurance bill is going to be. And they're already being stretched to the max, 45% debt to income ratio, and that's on their gross income too, by the way. And whenever those increases come, they're now spending 55-60% of their entire gross income on just paying for the house. So going back to like what I said earlier, the people that are living in the cars right now are just sick of that. They're like, yeah, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not going to be spending all this money just to be chasing the house. Like, for what? And honestly, I don't blame them. Now here's where their predictions really start to fall apart for me, is because they say that mortgage rates should go lower. So they're still drinking the Kool-Aid that the Fed is brewing, saying that there's going to be rate cuts this year, which are looking less and less likely by the day now. And they even admit in here that interest rates today are still higher than they were a year ago, guys. So this is the nail in the coffin for the housing market right now. But even if it went down, it still is not going to be affordable. That's the reality. And their prediction on home prices is that home prices will rise, but by less. They say the good news is the rate at which prices are going up is starting to slow down. According to Realtor.com, the median list price in February was $415,500, which is just a 0.3% increase from February of 2023, guys. That's almost no appreciation, Like, that's why when you see things like the Case-Shiller Home Price Index, for example, that was a big thing that came out recently saying, oh, as of the January figures, median home prices are up 6% year over year, guys. Well, according to Realtor.com, of the February numbers, it's only 0.3% up year over year. And they track all markets, not just the top 20 or 25 in the country. So you really have to be careful and look at all of the data. You can't just look at one headline, because of course anybody who wants real estate to appear stronger than it is going to always revert to that one data point. But I like to talk about all of them. Let's cover everybody. Case-Shiller says it's 6%, Realtor.com says it's only 0.3%, Zillow somewhere in the middle. There are a lot of signs that the market is turning around, because also according to Realtor.com, 14% of available homes in February had a price cut, which is the highest level that they've recorded since 2019, pre-pandemic. So things have gotten way overheated for too long. You're starting to see the inventory creep back up. At the same time, you're starting to see people reduce the price and come back down to earth. So far, my prediction of it being just a slow burn for the housing market, where things continually just get slower and slower and inventory continues to build, has been a correct prediction. And to back up what I'm saying in my predictions is that they also believe inventory will go up this year. According to year-over-year data from Zillow, new listings increased by 21% in February, guys. That is a huge increase in inventory. And according to Redfin and Realtor.com, it's up 12%. So I don't know how they have these discrepancies, but they do. It could be also because Zillow accepts a lot of for sale by owner listings, and those should be counted because those are available homes for sale. Just because they're not listed on the MLS doesn't mean it doesn't count. So I would even say that Zillow has the more accurate number here, not just because it's higher, but because you can do a for sale by owner on Zillow versus Redfin and Realtor.com, you cannot. So all these people who've been holding off and waiting to buy are actually starting to get rewarded, guys, because now you're finally starting to see the market turn. And by no means is it still a good time to buy. Is it better than a year ago? Yeah, probably in most places. But is it still an ideal time to buy? No, definitely not. It's still very expensive, and these rates are still going to bleed you dry for the most part. They also believe that more home sellers are just going to continue getting off the sidelines because they're starting to realize that this new rate and price environment is the new normal, and people have been kind of holding off on selling over the past few years, hoping it's going to turn around and hoping for this magical rate cut that we're probably not going to get, and they're realizing it's not going to happen, and they're just going to move forward with the sale anyways. Now, their next prediction also relates to homeowners insurance, is that homeowners insurance will cost more. Shocker! It's funny how much I'm actually on the same page with all of these experts right now. Usually we're at odds, but I agree with almost everything they say so far. Maybe they're watching my channel. They say one of the worst things about insurance right now is you cannot rely on today's rates to stay where they are, because the experts are predicting another 10 to 15% rate hike in insurance this year. Who would have known? Who's been saying that? I don't know where did I hear that one from before. And so they say this means that prospective buyers will need to factor rising insurance costs into their determination of how much home they can afford to buy this spring. What have I been telling you guys out there? Anybody who is looking to buy, guys, you need to check how much you're going to be paying on insurance in your due diligence period when you're buying a house. This is essential right now to making sure you're going to be able to afford the house after you buy it. And even then, even if you do that, and it's affordable today, does not guarantee it will be affordable tomorrow. That is the worst part right now. You're basically rolling the dice. It's a huge gamble to buy right now because insurance can put such a kink in your plans right now. So unless you're paying cash, this affects you. And people need to understand that every time your insurance goes up or your property taxes go up, this makes your mortgage payment go up, because most people have all that stuff escrowed into their mortgage payment, and when that stuff goes up, you're going to get charged more each month. It's that simple. I think for the first time ever since I've looked at the expert housing market predictions for later this year, I pretty much agree with almost everything they say. Besides the rates coming down, I mean, I think they're spot on, guys, but really they're just copying what I've been saying. So I'm not going to give them too much credit, but I think it's good to see that the experts who look at the housing market are starting to be on the same page with what's really been going on in reality over the past year and a half. It took them a long time to see it, but they're finally starting to wake up, which is a good thing, because that means this message will spread to more people, because only so many people watch my videos, and other people just watch the news or read the news, and they're going to see that. So this is a good thing. And ultimately, I think it will achieve the goal of having less people buy. More people, hold off on purchasing a house. And when that happens, you're going to see more inventory build, which will ultimately lead to even further price reductions on homes, which we desperately need right now. So you heard it from me, you heard it from the experts, guys. There's lots of changes coming down with real estate right now. Inventory's picking up, insurance costs are still shooting through the roof, property taxes are still going up. There's a lot of price reductions out there right now. So if you've been on the sidelines, it probably pays to continue waiting. That's what I think. I'm not telling you what to do, but depending on your market, if you're starting to see these things happen in your market, it definitely makes more sense to wait right now. Obviously, there's places like in the Midwest that's totally on fire, okay? Like, you're still seeing big price appreciation year over year and very low inventory, because those areas are still affordable. People can afford to live in the Midwest, and I think that is the whole reason you're seeing it. In places where it's not affordable, it's starting to change and turn around. Know your market and make the right decision. And if you don't feel like dealing with any of this, you can just move into your car. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.